Hey there, Internet Keith here, and welcome to the Cars and Keith YouTube channel. And in this video, we're gonna go over all of the wash methods. Your 1 bucket, 2 bucket, 3 bucket, 4 bucket, who knows? We're just gonna go over all of them, just foaming the car. What I like to use in certain situations, I never use usually the same method twice in a row. It just depends on how dirty the car is, the surface I'm working with, the coating on the surface. All of them are effective. Some are just overkill for some situations, and some aren't enough for other situations. So softness of paint, hardness of paint, like I said before, coating. So let's get right into the washing. So you can see Helen, she's a 440i. It's my wife's car. Been driven in the rain a lot because Heidi over there doesn't get driven in the rain. So she takes the brunt of it. The level of dirt that you see determines my wash method. This is about as dirty as I've ever seen this car or any car that I've ever had. So let's go ahead and get started with the buckets and how I like to fill them. The soaps I use and all that kind of stuff, depending on whether or not I use the buckets. I use a fire hose nozzle right here. I have a link below for just about anything in this video. I have my shutoff valve here, so I can just turn it on and off and fill it up. What I really like about this nozzle is you can agitate and not agitate your soap. So you can turn it to get a much harsher spray. You can also turn it really wide, where you're just kind of filling it up and it's not getting too soapy. I'll fill both of these up pretty good. I filled this up maybe a little bit too much for the demonstration. I'll pour a little bit out. Always make sure you rinse these out before you use them, even if you just washed the day before or whatever. So we can demonstrate the soap. I have my small bucket here. I've emptied a lot of the water out that I use to just do the demo. Just about out of Gwash from Gtechniq here. That's what I use. I use 2 squirts. I'm about out, like I said. I gotta have the thing in the, there we go. That's enough. I have a whole bottle back there, I just haven't put it out yet. Then I'll take my hose, fill it up gently. I'll put it on harsh. Then later I'll come back and fan it out so it kind of knocks down the soap a little bit. And there you go. Alright, obviously any kind of wash you do, always rinse off first. A few pointers: never point the spray directly at a panel. Always come from an angle, and try to always wash at an angle directly where the wind would be hitting the car as it's driving down the road. So you would always be going this way. So if you're doing the roof, you're on an angle this way. And of course, always top to bottom. Okay, so truly the first method is just a foaming. Now I would do this if it was just a bunch of pollen or some dust that got on the car. I need to quickly rinse it off. I would still use the foam. Normally this for me is the pre-rinse that I do before I do my regular wash method. And also on the pre-rinse, I like it to be a little more liquidy, not as much foam, so it runs off easier because it is the pre-rinse. The foamier one I'll use for the different types of Mitt methods that I use. So you'll know what I'm using currently is the MJJC. I use it for everything. Since I figured out how to auto meter regardless of the unit, this actually has the hose and the weighted ball from a Brilliant Finish. And my other one that I use for the Mitt has the weight in the ball from my Boss foam cannon. I just think it's like a nice little Frankenstein job to get all this done. But I just turned the knob down to get it to be like this. It doesn't spray as well when you do that, but still effective. Alright, now as it's dwelled off a little bit, I'll come back and do some misting to get the dwell off a little bit more, and then we'll go and rinse it. I think that's a pretty effective method for getting that really good dwell off the surface. Now our rinse is going to be more effective. So let's go over the different bucket methods. So word of advice, there's only a couple of bucket methods. You can add a third if you're truly paranoid, an initial rinse, a second rinse, and then your soapy bucket. So this really helps. This does help get with lubricity through the mitt. I always use a mitt no matter what, no matter what method I'm using. Or there is one more method that I'll show you in the end using just a ton of microfibers. That method's okay, but it's just a whole big hassle with all those microfibers, having to wash them all the time. I will tell you what, these waterproof shoes that I did a review on in the last video, they work amazing. I'm truly surprised. There'll be a link below those if you ever want to look at them. But when you're doing one bucket method, it's only a rinse bucket. You never want to do a soap only bucket, right? The purpose of the one bucket method is that you're rinsing off your mitt, getting the contamination off of your mitt, and you have foamed the car with a foam cannon, and that is your soapy medium that you're going to use to, have your lubricity to get the dirt off without damaging the paint or the surface. So like I said, only rinse water with a grit guard in the bottom, and then you're good to go. So your one bucket method is panel for panel, just like any other method that I use. We're just going to get it wet. And we already have the foam on the surface. We start from the top. Never scrubbing, only wiping. And then if it's really dirty, we would flip that mitt halfway through the panel, or we could do 2 panels. You can see how dirty that is. So with your one bucket, you're going to come back and vigorously rinse that off. Work it, come back, do it again. Now sometimes when you're doing this, you might even have to dump this and go 2 or 3 different rinses just based off of what the water looks like on the side and how much dirt's in the bottom. Sometimes it's easy to just dump it and maybe even have 2 rinse buckets possibly. So now on to our 2 bucket method. We have rinsed off our mitt. Now we're going to dump it in the soapy water, getting all that foam and everything on there. And then we wipe the panel. Like I said, this car is really dirty, so we are flipping halfway through. We rinse vigorously, like I said before. And then you go back to your soapy bucket and start the next panel. Now these are effective methods. This is like the industry standard, the 2 bucket wash. I personally myself, I don't like the 2 bucket wash because I feel like this water is so contaminated that I'm just putting it back on here. There's a grit guard, obviously dirt does fall, but there are stuff that will float in the top. Same with the soapy water. You can be doing the same there as well. So what I like to do as the mitt is on my hand after each panel, now that for me is more effective than this. The dirt is getting out. We have high pressure at close range. The soap that we're using is the soap from here. We're not bringing any back to the surface from the buckets. I just think it's a really effective method. It does get you a little bit wetter because of all the mist and everything that's coming off the glove, but I think it's the best way. So we went over the different bucket methods. Now, I didn't wash the whole car. I just showed you a demonstration of them because I personally don't like them. I showed you how to rinse the mitt off on my wash. But what I want to do now is foam the car down and show you how I wipe the car down, because I don't necessarily do panel for panel. I do a carousel merry-go-round around the car, and I go from top to bottom. So I'll show you that method right now. I had to change angles. The sun came up right over the house, right in my face. I ran out of my normal daylight that I use in the mornings to film. That was Gwash in a foam cannon. Like I said, this is Frankenstein as well, with a different tube and a metered tip, so I don't have to mix my dilutions. So I'm using the active VE52 pressure washer, which with this tip is pushing out about 1.8 gallons per minute at 1000 psi, maybe a 1050. It's a 3.0 tip. My custom tip here, if you ever want to check out that video, I made custom tips for these. So here's my method. I start from the top, work my way down from the roof. When I do the windows, I can do all the windows because windows don't matter as much when it comes to swirl marks and that kind of stuff. So we'll work our way down and then rinse off as needed. Like I said, I can move on to the windows, no problem, so I can get a lot more in this initial wash. Of course, the key's in my pocket. So once I'm done with the top, I just kind of go around in circles, maybe like 2 lines down, enough for the mitt to go all around on one side of the car. So start here. Well, that's the merry-go-round method. Now the sun is really killing my lighting right now. Good thing we're almost done. Just gotta rinse the car off. That method really only works well at night, in the morning, in the shade, because you're leaving the soap on the car for really long periods of time. If it was really hot outside or you couldn't get in the shade, you'd want to do one panel at a time and rinse, and keep rinsing and then soap, soap, soap. That's probably where the 2-bucket method is more effective there. But for what I do, I think this is effective. I do think I could add a couple things if it was a painted surface. Since, like I said, it's a satin, it self-heals. Since it's a wrap, it's coated many times. I don't have to. The foam is coming down from the top and it is dirtier as you're hitting it towards the bottom, so I really do think that adding in a second foaming halfway through and a rinse probably is a good idea. So I forgot one last process. I'm already done, but the microfiber one I mentioned earlier, basically soapy bucket. You just dip these in there, 4 or 5 is probably what you're gonna need. These are Eagle 500s, nice thick plush microfiber. And then you just sit there and go to town on your car. One pan on one side, flip to the opposite side, then you can flip it inside out. And then I throw that away and I go to the next one. You could, if you only wanted to use just a couple of microfibers, you could flip that more inside out and then just keep going. You have, 8 panels that you can do with one microfiber. Really effective process. I use it with my O&R for a rinseless wash. I have a video on that as well. It's a really good method. It's just a little bit too tedious for me to have to go through all of these instead of just one mitt. So one thing I like to do at the very end, I like to take the hose off my pressure washer and hook it up to my fire nozzle here and do a really drenching rinse. You can always look in the beads on the car to see if there's little suds in there. If there is, you need to get those off. The surfactants, get them off the car. This also helps work all the soap that's in the crevices down out through the drain tubes at the bottom of the car so they don't like sit in the grooves and stuff and all dry up in there. It also makes it a lot easier to dry the car off because now there are much larger beads on the car, so when I use my blower it's a lot easier than those little bitty misted beads that you get from a pressure washer. So I really hope you liked that video, the different wash methods, the method that I use. Like I said, I didn't cover them too much. I just kind of went over them because I really don't like them. I'm sure in the comments below there's going to be a fight and a war over what method is best and this and that. Like I said, I think it has to do with the surface you're working on, how dirty it is. There's different methods for everything. I still think that washing the mitt off is more effective than, you know, dipping it in dirty water, basically. So don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. All of the wash meshes, all of them are effective. Some of them are overkill in bird. All of them are effective. Every time I talk. So you can see Helen, my 44. So I like to go ahead and have them do. To walk barefoot and everybody gets you up. Oh, man, so many cars today. Man, car after car after car. So you're one bucket with my hand inside the mitt. So what I like to do. Now obviously didn't wash the whole car. The sun's coming back behind me now. It's messing up my lighting.